Joining us now is the Attorney General of the state of Arizona, Mark Brnovich. Mr. Attorney General, great to have you back with us.
Vince, thanks for having me on again, brother.
Of course. Always good to talk to you. And one of the issues we do talk a lot about because it matters to the country in a big way, and you're bearing the brunt of it down in Arizona, is illegal immigration. I see reports now in the New York Times that this is the headline they're using: as border crossings soar, Biden relies on shelters to manage influx. But as I was reading through this morning, what really stuck out to me is that illegals are pouring into communities across the country, overwhelming the resources of those communities. The Biden administration has been relying on a constellation of nonprofit organizations to shepherd them into the United States and house them, at least temporarily, until they're overwhelmed. And the New York Times says this is all to, quote, stave off politically explosive images of chaos and disorder ahead of the November midterms. This is just an amazing piece of reporting, again, in the New York Times of all places. You know, what is your visibility on this in Arizona, Mr. Attorney General?
Well, as we've discussed, Vince, border security is national security, and every state is a border state now. And as you know, we talked about when I was arguing at the U.S. Supreme Court in February, it was literally over the Biden administration trying to withdraw the public charge rule, which would give welfare benefits to non-citizens. We have seen the Biden administration do that. We've seen them try to revoke Title 42 when we led the charge. We've just filed a lawsuit over his wanting to let DHS grant asylum to people that are here illegally. So what is happening is the Biden administration is not systematically dismantling ICE. They are systematically dismantling our southern border. And as a result of that, America is less safe in every state. Whether you're listening in Virginia or Maryland or in the DC, wherever you're at, you are now a border state because the record amount of drugs flooding into this country and the record amount of people that have illegally crossed into our country and are straining our social welfare and social safety net is unprecedented in this country. Yeah. And all Americans are paying the price, either financially or through their public safety.
You've got the DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. He's been claiming lately, and my jaw drops whenever I hear him say something like this, that DHS has operational control of the border. And basically, you know, how dare you question the control that DHS has on the border? What I didn't really contemplate until I had a conversation with Tom Homan this week, the former ICE director, and he was laying it out. He goes, yeah, they do have control over the mission of getting people into the United States because Joe Biden and company, and DHS specifically, have been setting up all of these processing facilities on the border in order to more rapidly introduce illegal immigrants to the state, to the country. So when you hear DHS saying that they have operational control of the border, I think at this point it's safe to assume what they mean is that they're trying to rush foreign nationals across it.
Look, it's a lie. I mean, it's basic economics even. We see the price of drugs falling drastically because the cartels are flooding into our country. We see a record amount of people crossing, not because Joe Biden or Cartel Kelly or Chucky Schumer are doing their jobs. We see it because people believe that they can break the law and they will be rewarded. And that's why we're seeing these record amount of illegal immigration into our country. And frankly, I mean, when Secretary Mayorkas went to the border the other day, I mean, the only people that cheered him were the people who are entering the country illegally because, you know, that's one place where maybe the Biden administration is more popular than anywhere else in America is with people illegally entering our country.
We've got in your state, Arizona, the governor Doug Ducey has emulated the actions of the Texas governor Greg Abbott and started busing illegal immigrants from those two states, in Ducey's case, your state, Arizona, to Washington, D.C. The claim is that this is to put all of these illegals at Joe Biden's doorstep so he can see the effects of his illegal immigration policies. But I'm watching this, and I got to be honest with you, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because what you have are foreign nationals who've illegally entered our country and who would love, those who have opted for it, they would love a trip to Washington, D.C., and it's being given to them for free. Is this a good idea that your governor is like shipping illegals to D.C. who want to be here?
Well, the problem is that it's Washington. It's the president's, he's at the height of his power when it comes to border security, and he's abdicating his job. And so that's why you see people like the governors of various states trying to send a message. But the reality is that I've issued an opinion. I was the first elected official in the entire country that issued a legal opinion saying what is going on right now with the cartels and the gangs constitutes an invasion. So if you really want to get Washington, D.C.'s attention, I think states like California, Arizona, Texas, all these border states should declare what is happening right now an invasion, and they should use their powers under Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution and start to enforce border security themselves, including at ports of entry. We saw Governor Abbott trying to do that a little bit. There was a lot of pushback. But at some point, if the federal government is not going to do its job, then the states have to do it. And the states created the federal government. The federal government did create the states. So states like Arizona, states like Texas need to actually be more aggressive, but in a way that's cost effective and not just a PR stunt.
Right, but your governor is not taking you up on that advice and getting tough on the illegal immigration crossing your border. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, he's made a lot of the fact that he was negotiating with Mexican governors in order to stop illegal immigration into the country. But a friend of mine and is the Daily Caller reporter Jorge Ventura. He asked Texas Governor Greg Abbott this week about, hey, remember that negotiation you had with these Mexican officials? Mexican law enforcement's not even doing anything on the border. They're not stopping illegal immigrants. So it seems like a lot of theatrics from the border state Republican governors right now that aren't really doing much to abate the illegal immigration that's pouring across those borders, unfortunately.
Look, Vince, I'm not here to throw shade on anyone else. I have got my hands full. I'm obviously running against Mark Kelly for the U.S. Senate. I'm involved in every major lawsuit, from us leading the charge and arguing ourselves in the Title 42 case. We filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration on their attempt to unilaterally be able to have DHS grant asylum. I argued myself the U.S. Supreme Court of the public charge rule. So there is a lot on our plate. And I always tell folks, I can only control what I can control. So I am going to issue a opinion saying governors can declare invasion. I am going to be in the courtroom suing the Biden administration, getting injunctions as we did the Title 42 case. That was us that did that. So I am going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fighting, not because it's a right versus left issue, because it's a fundamental issue of right versus wrong.
Yeah.
And I think I've mentioned this before, Vince, on your show. Look, I'm a first-generation American. I mean, my family, my parents lived through World War II. They lived through communism. People come here because the rule of law has to mean something. And what we are seeing the Biden administration do, and Joe Biden and Secretary Mayorkas do, is completely shred the rule of law and undermine the very reason why people want to come here in the first place.
Yeah, no, I like seeing the fight. I think that's important. And the reason, of course, I bring up those Republican governors is because I'd like to hector them into actually doing the right thing for the American people as much as possible. I don't want to be, misled by the theatrics, which is why I like to bring it up. I think it's important. The other piece of this, I'm curious about Attorney General Mark Brnovich of Arizona. Thank you as always for joining us. Is what kind of, are you able to prosecute any of the related crimes within the state of Arizona to all of this illegal immigration? Like, what are you able to do with your office? Obviously, you've been arguing in the courts in order to encourage the states to do their jobs and to get the federal government to actually follow the law. But is there anything you're doing as a state attorney general to prosecute the systems that are making all of this possible?
Well, we are doing everything we can. I'm using all the tools in my toolbox, and there's a reason why the local media here in Arizona is attacking me, because, I'm doing everything I can to enforce the rule of law. But the reality is that, and there was a case, Arizona case, that went up to the U.S. Supreme Court a decade ago that basically said the states cannot enforce civil immigration law. So we are limited what we can do. So obviously there are cases involving the cartels and criminal activity and drug charges we can do. And the state can also charge, for example, people with trespassing. But here's the reality. Texas was doing that. And what ends up happening is you charge people with trespassing. They end up getting, 3 squares and a cot for a week. And then they get released because ICE won't deport them. And so I've actually brought this up before, is that we have people right now, there's more than 1 million people in this country with deportation orders. And there's people being released from prisons, jails, people charged and even convicted of serious crimes. But if the Biden administration won't deport them, you can prosecute people, but the federal government has to do its job. And so shame on the Senate. Shame on Congress. Shame on the president, because they keep funding these agencies who refuse to do their job. And what they're actually doing is they're expediting the undermining of U.S. sovereignty. They're undermining our national security, because we all understand and recognize that border security is national security. So I'm doing everything I can in a courtroom, but the reality is that states are limited when it comes to criminal prosecutions for people that are violating immigration laws.
You know, that's the first time I've heard that assessment about the trespassing charges. So in the end, if you hit some of these illegals with trespassing, all you're doing is bringing them into the system, and then taxpayers are footing the bill for meals and shelter. So it increases the burden on the taxpayer. I mean, it just seems like so many bad options here, Mr. Attorney General, other than, the one that should be invoked, which is just enforce the laws as written.
Just enforce the law. It starts enforcing the law. And I will tell you what, during the Obama administration, we had Operation Streamline, where the federal government prosecuted people for illegal entry into the country and illegal re-entry in the country. You saw a dramatic decline. This goes back, once again, you have to have disincentives. You can't decriminalize an activity, because you will see more of it. And so the reality is even like using trespassing or some of these other laws, the problem is that if the federal government won't deport people, all that happens is they get, a free room and board for, a week or 30 days. I mean, literally, Vince, I think the toughest question facing people breaking the law and entering our country illegally right now is whether they want the room with one king bed or two queens.
Yeah, that's the direction we've gone entirely. Attorney General Mark Brnovich of Arizona, always good to talk to you, sir. Thank you for that.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on.